famous journalist. Give us a little bit of background about your work, and we are definitely ready with questions, right, class?
Basically, who I am. I'm a journalist. I was born and raised in Azerbaijan. I graduated from State University, from journalism faculty, and I started writing basically since I was 19. I started with news agency, worked a little bit with newspaper, then my first big job was with news television, and I started as a reporter, and 25 years I'm still there, switching from one channel to another. I did work with BBC Radio for a couple of years, I think 5-6 years, but this is it. I mean, it's in real day, in today's journalism, it's very close, TV, radio, newspaper. As long as you're a journalist, as long as you're doing your best, which is, in my view, is to serve the public, and it's right to know.
Benjamin, can you stand? Can you see the person talking?
Yes, I can.
Hi, how's it going? I'm
Hi.
I saw on the quote that you said that you like that journalists should prioritize their safety. How should a journalist prioritize their safety? And you said all the best ones are sent to jail. So
I think the context when I said that, what I said was that before you even start journalism, I think one of the most important characteristics for future journalists is courage and being brave, and everyone should know that, because your career will put you into situations when you really have to risk your life, literally. And especially true if you are working in countries like Azerbaijan, like Armenia, like the Caucasus, in developing world, in countries with military conflicts going on. So it's inevitable that you will find yourself in situations like that. So when I say that put your safety first, is that realize what awaits you, be prepared for it. Journalism nowadays is the most noble professions, in my view, but it's also one of the dangerous professions in the world. They say journalists or media is the force power. I don't agree with that. In countries like Azerbaijan, when first branch of power, second branch of power, and third branch of power is the same person, is the president, like in Russia, like in Azerbaijan, like in dictatorships. The media is not the fourth branch of power. Media is the second branch of power. So you are competing with the power that has all the resources, all the revenues, and all you have is the truth. And that's what you are serving to. That's why you're working for.
Well, we kind of had like this overarching question about how do you protect journalists? And I was wondering, like, if you had, I mean, you said they need to protect their own safety, but how can they be protected? That's my follow-on question as well.
As a media manager, obviously your number one priority is the safety of your reporter. And I've been in many situations when I had to choose, and I never ever doubted that the safety of the journalist is number one. That's what matters. You never put your journalist's life into risk. It is the media manager's responsibility to ensure that the reporters are safe, and this is the reporter's responsibility as well. But it doesn't mean that it should stop you from covering important stories. And because if you do stop doing that, it's like knowing that if you ride a bicycle, you may fall one day, you give up bicycle at all. So if that was the case, we wouldn't be in journalism. So that's why I say that anybody who considers to become a journalist, considers to become a reporter one day, should be aware of these risks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Sammy, can you stand, please?
Okay, this is kind of unrelated to journalism, but I was reading about that debate show, Open Talk, that you did, and I thought that was really interesting. So could you maybe, I don't know, how was it working with all these like big political figures, and like how did you go about that?
Well, thank you for this question. After each show, I was telling myself that I have earned probably 20, 30 people enemies. At the same time, I was telling myself that I earned probably 10 times more friends. And that's the case. You do not make friends without making enemies, because when you are tackling important issues like corruption, like good governance, like government, you are touching certain circles' interests, and they're not happy about that, and they will go all the lengths to stop you. And from pressure, from calls, from from threats. But on the other side, the beauty of this is that you also earn a lot of friends, people who you symbolize, people you become their voices of. You say things that they are not able to say. So ultimately, you are earning a lot more friends and supporters and fans, and that's the beauty of the job. Doing that open debate, I was trying to bring together political parties that refused to speak to each other, that they considered each other as enemies. There was no such tradition as till today is not, because that only television that we had back in Azerbaijan is now closed, so nobody's doing these days, unfortunately, that job. But we actually, we started doing this because we're encouraged by the BBC's debate program, debate show. We loved what they were doing. I thought this was very important to bring these people to speak to each other in order to have a public debate on important issues. I have to say that the ruling party, YAP, has boycotted me after a couple of first shows. So they thought that I am serving the enemy, that I am bringing the voice to people who do not exist. And as a matter of fact, it is true that because of the media, you actually do have political parties engaged in politics, and believe it or not, it's because we are there, it's because we're asking them questions, it's because we're bringing them, giving them the floor, that sometimes they start to act on things. If there is no media, they wouldn't be doing that. It's very much true in Azerbaijan too. Because we were asking those questions, what is your opinion on that? What is your take on that? What is the right decision for the country to go? These parties themselves were, in the end, had to come up with some kind of a position on that. So I think it was beautiful what we were doing. Even though the ruling party has boycotted us, they didn't want these shows. In one instance, I remember I even had the audiences in the studios. We were about to start the show, and all of a sudden there's one phone call to the ruling party spokesman, and he leaves the studio and never comes back. So he gets the phone call from someone else that he shouldn't be there, he shouldn't be talking, so he leave immediately. It was in the press, it was really funny. I found this amusing, because they could at least come up with this decision before the show has started. But things happen. So I think it's important to have these kind of programs, even though, again, there are certain risks that you are running. You know that there will be circles and people and parties who will not be happy with what you're doing. But hey, look, if not us, a lot of things would not be happening. It's good that we're giving the floor to the people. We're showing it's always, but we're not becoming the part of it. Our job is to let people judge, and they are smart people. They know when it's wrong, they know when it's time to act. So it's important that we continue to do this job.
Questions? Oh, just changed. Anybody else? Benjamin? Sure.
So I have a question. So is Azerbaijan, is that state-owned media or is it privately owned?
Sorry, Benjamin, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat that, please?
Is Azerbaijan state-owned or privately owned media?
He's asking about the different state-owned media.
Right.
And is there any other privately owned, like ANS, anymore?
Yes, we have a wide range of news media outlets, but unfortunately the number does not translate into pluralism. We, especially in digital, in broadcast journalism, in television, and there is a pretty good freedom with when it comes to newspapers, but with television, because it has larger audiences, unfortunately is less lucky. So the only TV stations that do have license, they are one way or the other under the government's influence. So therefore, it is important that nowadays the internet has developed so well, so much that people do not depend on traditional media only. So that's when the digital media, online TVs, Facebook, social media becomes handy. And it's very hard to compete with them, because how are you gonna close down Maidan TV that I work for instance? All we have to do is close down the whole internet. There is no way to block one particular one, because people find ways, through VPN and others, to actually get to see what they want to see. So that's why nowadays I think it's really impossible, unless you just admit that as a government you are completely dictatorship, you don't care about freedom whatsoever, and you close down the whole internet. We're not there yet, luckily. So that's why we are so grateful to Mark Zuckerberg. I love him, please pass my love, huge love to him. And also to the founders of Twitter, of all the other social media. Because of them, we are surviving, the countries, the developing world countries. Because of the social media, we are able to convey our messages, to show the news, to continue this noble work.
How do you gather video or pictures at events or for stories that the government doesn't want you to cover?
Well, there are always ways to come up, and sure, there are lots of things that government does not want to be covered for obvious reasons, but you want it to be covered because you believe that that's a story, because you believe that the audience has to know it. It doesn't mean that you come and always tell your name, your affiliation. You sometimes have to be smart about things. There have been a lot of instances in my life, in my career, when I didn't use my real name or my affiliation. But it doesn't mean that you're not fair. You have to be fair to the people you are interviewing. That's 100%. It's a golden rule. You're not gonna lie to them, but not telling things is not necessarily lying. For instance, there was one baroness in London. I used to work in BBC back then. I really wanted badly to interview her. She wouldn't speak to me if she knew I am from Azerbaijan. So I had to pretend that I'm from the Caucasus.
Which is true.
Which is true. And I said that the story is a bigger, sort of bigger picture, bigger story, and which is also true. But in the midst of the interview, I started to ask her questions that I really was after. I did that many times. I'm not ashamed of it. This is how we do. If there are a lot of people who you call and say, hey, can I please schedule an interview to speak about, this and that, you know that the answer will be, of course not. So you have to come up with other excuses, as if you're talking about other stories, or don't let a lot of time to the person to speak to. I have been in instances when the person starts to talk about, starts the interview with one position, 20 minutes later, the same persons in the same interview tells things that are 180% contrary to what he was saying 20 minutes ago. Completely contrary, completely. It's how you conduct the interview, because when they first start, they have their own agenda, they have their own message to convey, they're prepared. Of course, they all come prepared before talking to journalists. They do their homework as well. So, but you keep asking the questions, and sometimes they do come up with the truth, the message that they probably wouldn't want to convey in the first hand. So they leave the interview having said things that they didn't want to say. So that's what I call professional journalism.
Hi!
Hi there.
Really close to the camera. So we listened to your BBC interview when you were talking about your process in investigating your father's death, and I was wondering how you go about investigating and reporting on something so personal, and how that just affects your work, and especially your own, your own bias towards it. How do you go about that?
That's an excellent question, and to be honest, there were moments when I was crying my eyes out. And it was very, very hard. And luckily, at some instances, for instance, I remember I was recording in the studio in Baku. The person I was interviewing didn't know that I'm the daughter of one of the persons that were killed. And luckily, my side of the studio was dark, and he couldn't actually see I was crying. It was just very traumatic. Even watching the footages of the killed, of the corpses, of the helicopter, of the scene was very, very painful. But on the other side, you know that nobody's going to do it better than you do. So you do your best. You just dedicate yourself, dedicate your time, years sometimes, to get to what you really want to know. About being biased, that's also an excellent question, because there's always this trap when you can't see the scenes that you want to see. So that's important not to fall into this trap. It's important, that's why, to stay neutral, even though some of those people that are engaged are your loved ones. Again, everybody gains from the truth, and that's a good thing about this. I did my best to verify things. A lot of people were approaching me throughout these years, telling me things that were not proven to be true. So it's important that you check things that you learned from one source with the second one, with the third one. So people, without even knowing it, were put in a virtual argument with each other. They didn't know, you know it, because I was putting same questions to different people and getting different answers. Then I was putting these different answers to other people to see what they have to say. So that's how you actually, it's the same thing as the law enforcement does, right? I mean, they are in a way similar to what investigative journalists do, because you investigate, you check with different sources and verify the information. So that's how I went. I'm not completely happy with what I've done, because a lot of archives are still closed. And we're talking about archives in Moscow, archives in Azerbaijan, archives in Armenia, in Turkey, and other countries. Especially, I'm hopeful, when the archive of KGB will be open, when I will be able, hopefully, to go and check them as well. And you have to know, even in Azerbaijan, it wasn't easy at all to get to the source. I remember I filmed this every year, and the prosecutor general would request me to write official letter, why I want to see the archive, etc. No matter what I wrote, no matter how many letters I wrote, I followed up with a phone call. And the spokesperson was talking to me, would ask me the same question again, over and over again. Who ordered you to do this? So till now, I don't know what is the right answer to it, because my answer did not please him. So he kept asking the same question over and over again. Who ordered you? Who's behind this? I kept saying that I'm behind it. This is my film, my documentary. I'm doing this. But apparently this was not the right answer. So in order to conduct a truly comprehensive investigation, you also have to have access to those archives as well. And they will be open only once all those political figures are out of the scene. Unfortunately, some of them are still in power, and that is the case in Azerbaijan. The president is in Azerbaijan, is a son of the previous president. And that's why a lot of archives are close to me, or anybody else really. So once they're gone, once the government changes, once years pass, you know, I will be able hopefully to find and get access to those archives as well. But even now, you know, even 25 years later, I do get different new releases from different countries, you know, what people have to say, eyewitnesses. But the majority of the people are still afraid, are still scared to talk about those events. And that's unfortunate. So basically that's why the time is the best, you know, just to wait for the right time to arrive.